Welcome back to another episode of the Husky Huddle Up podcast. My name is Carlos, and today we're talking about the family orientation program. We want to give you a little bit more information about how families can get information, can ask questions, and to really learn about strategies on how to support your student as they're getting ready to start classes at UW in the fall. This episode hopefully will be able to frame the family orientation program at a high level so that you know how to engage and get information as you need it.
Hi everyone, this is Jana Marish, and I wanted to say that our family orientation is a new structure from even last year. We thought about how our own students learn through different ways and absorb information in different ways. So we actually applied that to how we look at family orientation. First, we changed it from parent orientation to family orientation because we've actually seen the growth of not just mom and dad showing up for orientation, but we had grandparents last year. We had some really fun aunts and uncles last year, and a few of them were even some siblings. So we wanted to make sure that family orientation felt as welcoming and as open as the definition of family is to all of us. And another new thing from what we did last year was, typically if all things were normal and on campus, we would only reach about 4,000 families. Once we went virtual and we had sessions every Tuesdays and Thursdays, we were able to reach 5,500 families. And for the math folks there, that's 37.5% increase. It's very, very significant in just 1 year.
I like how you did the math on that. That was good.
I know. I had engineering families here and some humanities families that are very into math. So I had to make sure that I represented that. And it's what we really thought about was, how do you provide access to everyone? Many of our students, you alike, you can absorb information by merely listening to it or reading it or watching something or interacting with somebody or learning by talking. So what we did was, if you're into listening, we have a Husky Huddle Up podcast. We have live webinars. And if you're interested in having a much more in-depth conversation, we have live question and answer sessions. All of these things will be recorded, so you can also play it back at your leisure. For some of our families that want to do their homework ahead of time, you can. That's great too. We are able to also have the parent and family guide, so that if families really need something to read and look at, we have our parent and family website, our New Huskies website. These are things that are really helpful and tactile for people that want to read through their information. And what we thought was, we wanted to be respectful of everyone's time. Some families are able to devote a good, they're free and they're able to come on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Sometimes they can't do that. So what we wanted to do is not only just give remote access, but it's self-guided. You do this on your own pace at your own time. It might be better to do this to listen to things or read things or watch things at 7:30 at night. We have international families in various different timelines and time zones, that we just really wanted to make this easy and accessible. There are some live events, but they're pre-recorded again, so you can watch it at your leisure. And I actually wanted to ask Carlos, because he and our first year programs are our wonderful partners in all of this. And there are families that need a bit of structure, just like our students. So what would you suggest our families who need something that's a little bit more readily timed, readily scheduled? What would they do?
Yeah, that's one thing that I really like about this new structure of family orientation, is we do provide the family modules, which is basically an online collection of pre-recorded videos, written content. There's some links on there as well that really outline all the information. So if you don't know where to start, I would start with the modules, because those will really kind of give you a structure of all the different information that we have to communicate to families. And so then you can kind of go from there, right? Because from the modules, then if you have questions that you would want to ask a certain department, if you dropped into the family question and answer session, we would have staff and other administrators in that webinar to answer your questions. And so these family drop-in Q&As, they happen weekly between July and September. So every Thursday afternoon, so it's Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. Families can drop in to ask questions, and then we also have, and then from there, right, like we're able to then answer questions either through the Facebook group or through email as well. And so we try to cover everything there.
Carlos, where would our families find this information? Is there one website to rule them all? So
Yeah, one place to go that is just kind of a really easy, an easy website to remember is fyp.washington.edu/family. That will give you an overview of basically everything that we're talking about today, access to view live webinars, access to on how to get registered, because that's another important thing is your student will need to register you for family orientation. And basically what we're having them do is all of your students will get access to have access to the advising and orientation registration system. And so your student will be able to add your name and your email, plus the emails of any other family members that they want to have access. And they will get a confirmation email, or you will get a confirmation email with access to the modules, with access to the drop-in Q&A webinars. And then you can navigate from there. So just make sure that your student registers you and adds you to their orientation registration, and you will get access to everything.
And the great part of that is it's a kind of an interesting way for our students to start really taking some agency or some responsibility from this start of their academic journey here at the University of Washington. You know, I am sure that parents and families are used to signing up their student to orientation or signing them up for certain things and doing the schedule. This time, we are asking our new Huskies to talk to you, talk to themselves, and say, this is the schedule that we would like to have for student orientation, which is it's a separate schedule from family orientation. And it's your first moment of a real Husky Huddle Up is when to do all of these things and start getting used to registering for things, signing up for things, scheduling things, making sure and confirming that that their orientation sessions are finalized. It's a good start for our young adults to start taking a little bit more responsibility about their time, which is sometimes might be a little uncomfortable because you have families that are used to making sure the schedules are set and ready for the entire family. This one, we're kind of giving that thought process and to our students to start beginning that way of managing their time, coordinating schedules. It's just a little bit of young adulthood inserted into this.
And that's really where the title of this podcast comes from, right? The Husky Huddle Up is really our suggestion and our expectation of families coming together to really talk about expectations, because as we make this transition from into the University of Washington, there's a few policies, there's a few federal policies specifically. I'm thinking about the FERPA policy, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. that really protects student data, and really staff members at the University of Washington are not able to share information about your student without their explicit permission. And so for many places, many parents might find that, staff members might not be able to give you a lot of information unless your student is the one making that phone call or sending that email. So start early, right? Yeah. Start helping your student take the charge of their education. We expect, we don't expect it to happen immediately. And Jana and her office really does some really good work on helping coach families on how to navigate resources and how to help empower your students. So yeah, we definitely aren't having you cut the cord immediately, but this is a good time to start kind of putting your student up front so that they can take care of these situations themselves.
Yeah, and I do want to reiterate that FERPA is not a university policy, but a federal one, and it's something that we clarify not just with our students and families that live in the United States, but we also for our international families. This is the federal law, so we are respectful of our students' privacy. But in that means of being able to share that great moment of communication between you and your student to say, what is this year going to be like for me and for you, and how do we want to work together? We see our families as critical partners to having a really successful transition into their first year. This is so much work to put together because we are so dedicated to your student success. We look at various different ways to kind of give you tools and resources that will be helpful from June, July, August, September, all the way through until commencement. And one of the ways that we do that is really taking advantage of one of the most popular social media channels that we have specifically for parents and families, which is our official University of Washington Parent and Family Facebook page. And
this is another new thing for this year.
It's very new. So the page itself is, funny enough, 7 years old. But we will have our first ever first year family of Facebook group within our page. It's a dedicated page for our first year families. And we wanted to kind of build community, but also there is a tremendous amount of questions, connections, suggestions, guidance that our first year families will have access to our UW staff. Both from an academic perspective, we're also going to have some wellness and student health services, housing and dining. Ourselves, we will be able to kind of extend our office into this virtual sphere, our virtual office, and have real-time connections with our first-year families. We kind of limited this to our first-year families for the moment because it is the one that has the most questions, and it's tied in with our family orientation.
And we'll also be posting all of our podcasts. We will be promoting the upcoming webinars and really kind of continuing the conversation on Facebook, right? So if at any point you have a question about one of the things that we bring up in the podcast, or maybe you aren't able to attend a live webinar that's upcoming and you would like to submit a question, the Facebook is actually going to be the perfect place for you to engage throughout the week and really get some of those questions. So if you're not able to drop into the live Q&A, the Facebook page is going to be the best way to get a question out there and to really start to communicate with other families, to communicate with the staff members who are on there. We will even have a few current students who work in the first year programs office to really help give their perspective as well. So utilize that Facebook group. And I know there's two ways that families can access it. The first way is to register for family orientation. You will get an invitation to
join
the group. But then I believe, Jana, they can also join directly to the group. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can also join directly to the group. The first thing is that you have to like our University of Washington Parent and Family Facebook page. There will be some questions to make sure that you are part of our first year family, and is highly encouraged that the easiest way is to really sign up for family orientation, but you can also come and request to be added to our first year family for first year family group. We're actually really excited to do this because it's just a way for us to be able to, at least for the 20 to 25 campus offices, to come to one little virtual office to be able to help and answer questions for our first year families. We're also going to be able to open this up to our transfer families who will be joining us this year. So if you are new, this is for you, so to speak. And, sometimes you'd rather really see a live person or a face. And I am actually really excited to hear about how the live webinars have really grown for family orientation. And I wanted to see if you could talk about that, Carlos. I love the live webinars.
Yeah. The live webinars are really a great way to focus on a specific topic. Mm-hmm. And if you visit our live webinar website, which is fyp.washington.edu/live, there are currently live webinars that are coming up. And so just to highlight a few that are coming up throughout the month of June, we are looking at some webinars around so some academic advisors are talking about what should I register for. So if you or your students have any questions about what course registration looks like, or how to prepare for advising and orientation, which is where students will register for their classes, that webinar will be a really great thing to tune into. There's also webinars about disability resources and the different accommodations that students can request. If you have questions about Early Fall Start, which is our program that allows students to start classes a month early in a small group to really start to understand what college classes and what sort of kind of an early start can look like for taking small classes, building community, and different things like that. On the website, there's an opportunity to filter for different topics, and then any of the past webinars that have happened will have recordings of, and so you'll be able to watch the video, you'll be able to listen to the questions that are being asked, and so know that the live webinars is a really good opportunity to kind of customize the information that you're getting, so you can kind of pick and choose the topics and kind of figure it out from there.
I really like the ability to filter for the topics, and I think it helps with planning for various different conversations. There's some really great topics about finances, and not just about how to pay for college, but how do you manage budgets, how you think about your time here at UW, having that really, really good and helpful conversation about budgets, planning, that extends to not just tuition, but also housing. And it's a really great way for families to just start dipping their toes in to really have this really great conversation. And of course, when you have something live, you need to have something to refer back to. So fyp.washington.edu/families is a great website for you to remember. We will have all of these links added to our Husky Huddle Up podcast audio for this. So do not worry, we will make sure that you have all of these things. We're going to try to make it so that it's curated and not like you have 80 links. It's really, we're trying to be very thoughtful about what to share with you. And our parent and family guide is something that we also wanted to kind of share because it's one thing. It's got an academic calendar. It has reminders of when to pay for tuition, debt, like when to pay for housing, great things like this is the start of the quarter, this is midterms week, finals week, great ways to plan your communications plan, or at least visits to campus. maybe during times where it's not as stressful and not as academically rigorous. We have a really great resource page for how you build how Huskies can have a full Husky experience by building community, the academic advising and the support wraparound services, health and wellness, and they all kind of fit in 2 pages that's easy for you to just take and tack onto the fridge and this is going to be printed and it's also digital. We are going to be mailing your own golden envelope, so to speak, so the Husky Guide, a welcome guide, and also a parent and family guide will be mailed to all students that have a U.S. address. And then for our international families, we invite you to come to our Circle office in Schmitz Hall, where you can your student and yourself can pick up your parent and family guide at their, like, when you drop off and you come back to campus in autumn, which we're very looking forward to.
And talking about coming back to campus,
oh yes,
we do have a few resources that we want to make sure that everybody knows about. There is the new Huskies timeline that is available on the admissions website, which really kind of gives a really good overview of the different things month by month that each student should be thinking about. I'm seeing deadlines on this list. I'm also seeing some really interesting things about U-Wild and some opportunities to get into the outdoors. So definitely want you all to take a look at that timeline to kind of map out what should be happening.
And we do suggest that this also be a Husky Huddle Up moment to go through this particular timeline, this particular website. One, it's easy to print out. There's an easy way for you to be able to print all of this out as well. It's laid out really, really easily from, March, April, and May. There's 2 or 4 things that really I feel like our families and Huskies should be looking at. It's a great way for you to start having calendars, both shared family calendars, or if it's on your iPhone or your Android, start putting in those deadlines, those reminders now, which would be really great. When the quarter begins, move-in weekend, it's and this really great thing called New Student Convocation, which is a wonderful event where we celebrate all of our new Huskies and kind of officially welcome them into our UW community. So great site to help with planning as well.
And then also recognizing that we're coming back to campus for the first time in over a year. And so there's an entire class of students, right? So our second year students haven't taken classes in person. They haven't, many of them may have never even been to campus. And so one thing that I'm really excited about is this focus on the second year experience, and how do we also make sure that we're welcoming our second year students back, and making sure that there are events and activities that are happening. And so for those of you who might be familiar with Dog Days, which is our welcome week, Dog Days has definitely been expanded to include second year students. And then a whole bunch of other things happening on campus. Obviously, we're still putting the plans together for these things, but we definitely will be having a pretty robust second year experience, especially as we're returning to campus. More information about that is on the first year program's website, again, fyp.washington.edu/SYE. So SYE standing for second year experience.
It's really exciting for our second year families. These are our families that we experienced our first year of a virtual parent and family orientation. We are looking forward to physically welcoming this class onto our campus. We are looking forward to physically welcoming their families as well, in a very thoughtful and abides by public health guidelines by the University of Washington. But please know that ever since we have gone through our remote learning and remote campus, we have thought, every single person on UW staff has thought about this particular this particular class and say, how do we welcome them back from housing and food services, making sure that everybody feels welcomed, and advising is really thinking about what is this year like transitioning from mostly online learning to physically having to show up for class, physically having to show up for testing, and our academic coaches and our tutoring are really starting to kind of think about how to provide that kind of service and wraparound help for all of our students, particularly for our second year. You heard about how we're going to be welcoming back our students through Dog Days. You know, it feels like the entire UW community, all our staff and faculty, we're going to try to make sure that there's a Dog Days feel throughout the year. Yeah. And our student organizations, our registered student organizations they've been so great over the past year to try to engage our students. But I think they are equally as eager to physically meet their new friends that they've made over the last year. And I'm sure that campus is just going to be very energetic and very robust, knowing that they're physically going to find each other and see each other soon. Yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah, and we're brainstorming different ways of, making sure that those groups are small groups, right? Because we still have the pandemic to worry about. Hopefully not as much in the fall by that time. But, we're still trying to, make sure that everything is following those health guidelines. And we'll do our best to also try to give you updates through this podcast regularly so that you can really start to have that information so that you can make the best plans for your family and for your students, especially as that includes packing up and moving into the residence halls or, attending events and workshops in order to get new information. And so hopefully this was, this gave you a good overview, right, of all the opportunities that are available to families and a few to students as well, so that you can really plan out what your summer will look like, and really utilize all of these programs to help in your own huddle ups with your family. So yeah. That's really the intention here.
That's great. And again, we hope to see you next episode, and we are looking forward to keeping the conversation and hope you can huddle up with your Husky this week.
Have a great one, everyone.
Bye.
The Husky Huddle Up series is a collaboration between the University of Washington first-year programs and parent and family programs to provide parents and families equitable access to information in support of their student success. The Husky Huddle Up is produced by John In, a senior in the UW Foster School of Business.